So we're here with Lake County Lake Lovers, and I'm thrilled to share a vision that Becky Saul has based on the volunteer initiative she shared last week. So Becky, over to you.
Yeah, I was just saying, I don't think we lack for great ideas. And even when we might not have all the resources, all the funding, I have seen great success at being able to move the needle when we right size our scope, our project. We don't try to drink the Pacific Ocean. We start small and we decide how long we're going to give ourselves to accomplish success. And then we break that goal down into bite-sized chunks. And we make those goals visible. That transparency helps to hold us accountable. And then we put a fund structure in place so that every interval, maybe every month, we check in and we report out what we accomplished, maybe what we learned, maybe we reset our future goals. And through that journey, we can get to measurable success.
And that's what we need, visible impact, and what I'm thrilled to share the speakers on this program have helped deliver and engagement with students. So thank you, Becky. And thank you all for joining us. I'm going to bring up a deck here. We have exciting program discussion today, and we'll just move right into it for the purpose of keeping us flowing and staying centered around our lakes. It's all about restoring the health of our lakes. That's why Lake County Lake Lovers was formed, and knowing that there are solutions to our lake activities. And what we want to do today is introduce you to two experts who have been working in lake monitoring and
recording in progress.
Oops. Thank you for muting if you could, and we're going to just go right over to our experts. Actually, I think I'll take a moment to share for those who haven't seen. Actually, I think everyone on this call has seen the overview of Global Waterworks and how really the purpose is to unite drops of interest for waves of impact in a community of water leaders with success stories, technologies available. Yeah.
Reintroduce themselves just real quickly.
Yes. Oh, the people on the call?
Yeah, the people on the call, sure.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, you may know them, things like that, but I need to be reintroduced. I'm 80. My memory is not as great as it used to be.
Oh, yes, no problem. And we are intimate here. So why don't we all just go around? You know me, Jim, founder of Global Waterworks, and Gary Swick, who's here with Friends of the Fox River. Gary, if you want to share your interest in the rivers and streams. Oops, you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay. Hi. I've been involved with Friends of the Fox River for over 30 years. And Jim, I think some of our work together was through Illinois Lake Management Association. I had students at Dundee Crown High School, and we did water quality monitoring, and we came to a couple conferences. And I worked with you long time ago, my very first mussel survey on Nippersink Creek.
Oh.
And I think you may have even been on a mussel survey in West Dundee that Jenny was on, and Jenny was a student maybe at the time. Do you recall that, Jenny? At South End Park?
And you're also muted, Jenny. There.
Yeah, I caught that. Thank you. I do remember participating in that. I do not remember exactly what professionals I was working with that day. That was a long time ago.
It was the big dogs. Yeah, I don't know if Jim was there. It's Roger Klosek and some county people. But I've known of you for a long time, Jim. I know we've interacted on some things.
Becky, you were working at Spring Grove.
Me, I was working at AbbVie,
Okay.
a biopharmaceutical company, and started a program to enable employees
Gotcha.
to volunteer extra time on top of their day jobs to pilot ideas to reduce the company's water, energy, and waste.
Good. And Frank, I do recall the presentation that you had given last time out. And then it's Stacy. Stacy, where, now you need to unmute. You are working with who?
I'm with the Village of Island Lake.
Oh, okay, good. And then these materials should be of great value to you.
Yeah,
A quick background for myself. I've worked in water-related things for about 40 years. I've done 3 books. One is on freshwater mussels. One is on aquatic macroinvertebrates. And the third is on bioassessment for stewards. And then the last thing that I was busy doing is I did a white paper on the impact of climate change for our region. When I say the impact of climate change, it's the impact on headwater streams, on Lake Michigan, on main stem streams, and on normal, regular size stream systems. So I've got a long history of doing technical work on lakes especially, and with publications. I have great concern about the status of the volunteer lake monitoring program and the status of Illinois EPA. Illinois EPA at one time had 1,200 staff people. They currently are down to 700. And one of the big things about the program I'm going to talk about today is that IEPA at one point in time had a terrific program in terms of taking a look at lakes, and it represented a really important resource. My concern today, as I go through this, is that we reinitiate that resource. And when I say reinitiate it, what it means is that other people, volunteers and other folks, are going to receive aid and help from the state for the work that they do. So one of the things I'm looking to try and do is to make sure whatever lake program, whatever lake problem you might be dealing with, is you're going to be getting help and aid from the state. If I could, Mary, then I'd like to be able to switch to
your slides, yep. Mhm.
Let's hope it works.
Okay, yep,
I'm depending on you, Mary.
yep.
Good.
So here I have wonderful pictures so we don't forget you, Jim or Gary. And we are just thrilled to have you here. And our agenda today is about why we're here, you know, what you can expect. And it's about citizen science. And we're here because of the lakes having problems. And but there are solutions, as the lakes on top show, and the bottom solutions, lakes that were treated. What you can expect is that we're focused on the lake discussion. I guess we've gone through this, but every one of you has a role to play, and you are the experts. So that's why we're very excited to have you here. And we don't need to modify the links because we just introduced each other. So what we'll do is just turn it over to you, Jim, with this detail that you have, and I'll switch the slides as you
Probably
see.
the most important thing, that was a very, very old picture of me. I'm glad I submitted that instead of the current one, for sure. This is a wonderful book. It's called Understanding Lake Data. It was originally created by Wisconsin Extension Service. And it is an example of something, it's 20 pages, but it is easier to read. It was meant for volunteers. It was intended for. So if you want a quick reference document to be able to give you structural and functional sorts of things about lakes, why lakes stratify, what are the main chemical and physical drivers of lake performance. This is something that's very easy to get hold of, easy to read, and highly recommended. It will be available off of the Wisconsin Extension Service. And in the meantime, we will also try and put it into the data base that Mary has.
Yeah.
Oh,
get
my
that in
hope
there.
is I can switch. Okay. The VLMP program, it began a long, long time ago in 1981. And there were, at one point in time, there were up to 334 lake communities that were participants. There were as many as 600 volunteers had been trained as a part of it. As it existed when it was stopped, it existed as a 3-tier program, and I'll define what those tiers are in a little bit more detail in a second. The highest tier defined formal standards conformance. What that means is the following. If you want money for a project, let's say it's a stormwater project, one of the things that is required is you have to identify that the stream reach that you're looking at is or lake is in conformance or not in conformance with the state water quality regulations. The early part of the program and the early tiers doesn't do that. It doesn't collect all of the information that you would have to do to defend a standards conformance identification. As it ended, as the volunteer lake monitoring program ended, the highest tier did involve that, and it meant that state would be able to put aside resources to address the fact that it was a 303D section lake or stream reach that was there. So the lake funds those things that are not in conformance with the water quality standards. So part of the business of what VLMP did is to identify some of those things at their highest performance level for what the volunteers were doing. It also is important, given the fact that you have multiple lakes. At the end, there were about 150 lakes in 2019 that were part of the program. One of the other things it does is identify spatial and temporal trending in lake communities. So what you are seeing is the program was statewide. There were people down in Greater Egypt and the southern tip of the lake, southern tip of the state that were part of the program. There's a separate group up in northeastern Illinois and still another group for the central part of the state. They have consistent methods. So one of the things that was generated out of it is a handbook of how to go about doing volunteer lake monitoring program. That was largely put together by Holly Hudson. Holly is with the Chicago Metropolitan Area for Planning and is another example of a lake resource and somebody that has had years and years of work with lake communities. The consistent methods is important, although there one of the things about doing sucky disk work is it is difficult to identify variability associable with how one individual gauges water clarity with the Secchi disc, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. It's an important integration into watershed management and planning. So by doing some of this work and taking some of the background data that's part of a volunteer program, that winds up being incorporated into that. And it can be integrated. There is actually a national program that identifies Secchi disc trends across the entirety of the country.
Great. So you've got the data into the national databases for that. And they did, I don't think you mentioned that they discontinued the funding for this. Jim, was it in 2019?
No, they ended the funding for this in 2019. The
Yeah.
state did not continue it.
Mhm.
The lowest end of volunteer monitoring program was what was called Tier 1. And it involves the use of a Secchi depth assessment. So anybody in our group that does not know what a Secchi disc is?
It's
Okay, well, that's just.
right over here.
Thank you for raising your hand. That's an important thing. The Secchi disc is an 8.5 inch disc with alternate black and white quadrants. It is lowered into the side of a boat that is on the opposite from the sun. It's dropped into the water, and then as you pull it up, the depth at which it reappears is recorded, and that's a gauge of the amount of turbidity or water clarity that exists. Why is that important? Because what it is a surrogate measurement of is algal concentration and sediment burden for the lake. So it gives a measure of those things, and even more indirectly than that, it also is a measure of some of the energy status of the lake. The Tier 1 program also involved assessing ambient conditions like weather and rainfall, identification of aquatic plants, the amount, and management activities. And they created a template, they created a template that for entry to this. So what you did is you filled that template out. Now, is there a lot involved in just simply doing the measurement of Secchi diff measurement and taking notes on the lake? Yes. So in order to do this, I'll read through some of the things that are involved. The weather conditions needed to be favorable. So sunny, calm days, but you don't want to necessarily go out with there's lightning. You needed to take the right time of day. So you look to have some consistency in terms of when you're taking the data. You need to have a boat, an anchor, a U.S. Coast Guard flotation device, a Secchi disc, clothespins, a lake map and location, and you get the idea. There was a substantial amount of protocols on how to go about taking this sort of data. So that was the first tier for the volunteer program. Why I'm baffled, Mary, at what I see here. Was that my problem?
Looks good to me.
Okay. I'll use that as is. For Tier 2, it was much more involved. So you did all of the things that are normally involved in Tier 1 activities, but you took water samples. what you see in terms of the picture is somebody taking a bottle sample. But what evolved through that is the use of even more detailed type of water samplers to be able to take a sample both at the surface of the water and deeper down. So the procedural sorts of things evolved so that this more detailed type of sampling could take place. Now, what did they take samples of? They took samples of total phosphorus. That's different than soluble reactive phosphorus. But they took samples of total phosphorus. They took samples that TKN is total Kaldol nitrogen. TSS is total suspended solids. VSS is volatile suspended solids. Nitrate is NO3. Ammonia is NH3. pH and alkalinity. Now, all of those good parameters are also discussed in that little Understanding Lake Data book. And they're also discussed in the manual that exists for the Volunteer Lake Monitoring Program. That is all, the manual for it is also online. The one thing I have to warn you about is it's very, very detailed. And before the program is reinstituted, that manual will probably have to be rewritten and reformed. And the program itself will have to be modified and cut down in terms of what is going to be possible to do in terms of money, staff, and time. So that if it is reinitiated, some of those things have to be dealt with. One of the other things that you see here is temperature and DO profiles. The temperature and DO volunteer lake monitors were given as part of, or at least a dissolved oxygen meter in order to be able to take what's called a lake profile of temperature and dissolved oxygen. Lakes stratify. The character of oxygen that exists at the surface and at the bottom is quite different. In order to be able to have an idea of how the lake is stratified and how or what sort of expression of temperature and dissolved oxygen is there, volunteers were busy taking that data. And the work that they did was evaluated for consistency and accuracy. Tier 3, similar to Tier 2, with the addition of identification of chlorophyll A samples, which had to be filtered. You do all of the same things that were involved in Tier 2 sampling. Tier 3 was the same with the addition of chlorophyll A, and the information from this was used for and was incorporated in the report to Congress that is generated by the agency. The report to Congress that's generated by the agency is a 305B report. All of the states have to report to Congress on a biannual basis. And as they report to Congress, they have to identify whether or not the water body is meeting standards or is not. And so it winds up being an critical and important sort of thing. So this is a way in which this information has potential use. Why is it important for that 305B report? Again, because it helps to control grant monies and general these days, there's a state revolving fund that gets money for lakes, and there are other ones as well. But the bottom line is it helps to identify whether or not the lake is meeting use attainability, and whether or not it's meeting water quality standards. Can you go on to the next one, please? Okay. The training manual that you see there is available on the web. The one thing I suggest to you is take a look at it and briefly and go through it just to see the sorts of things that were there. It will change. It will not stay. And Mary? Okay.
I imagine she'll pop back on here in a moment.
Yeah.
Can you share your screen, Jim? Do you know?
I'm sorry?
Can you share your screen?
I'm
Sometimes
sorry,
it's-
here. I still am having a hard time hearing you.
can
Go
you-
ahead and Jim, share your screen so we can see what, maybe, do you have slides there that you're talking about?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
trying to show my screen.
You go on the
Mary?
bottom there and it says
Yeah.
share screen. Right in the middle of the bottom, you see it? Yep, go ahead, Becky, unmute. You're
Mary
saying so.
texted that her power went out.
Oh, yeah, they're challenged in Chicago or in Libertyville, I guess it is.
Can
I
you,
have power in Libertyville, but just saying.
Oh,
You
okay, so
just-
she must be isolated. That's good.
Yeah,
can you,
Just
can you bring my
send a
screen back
text
up?
that she's aware, so
Yeah,
she's probably trying to get back on.
yeah. She'll come
Uh-oh.
on via her phone or something. So, any comments on what Jim?
Can you
But-
see my screen?
No, no.
Okay. I'll have to,
Can you find that part on the bottom, Jim, that
I,
says share
I can
screen?
show you,
On the bottom where it says share screen, right dead in the middle, almost. On the bottom of your screen, it says participants, and next to it says share screen.
I see participants.
Next to it should be share screen.
Got it.
I see Mary. I see a photo of her.
There it is. She's coming in. She's back. Here she comes. There she is.
Can
There you
you,
go, Jim. It looks like you're gonna share your screen.
Great.
job.
There you go.
Ta-da!
There you go.
Okay. You go for it, Jim.
Yeah.
this is the training manual that exists. It's on the IEPA website, and you can take a look at it. And it identifies in very, very substantial detail the sort of work that was being done by the VLMP program and when it was ended in 2019. The value of this program is to gather fundamental lake information. Understanding lake data refers you back to those things that I identified to begin with. You are busy establishing a baseline with these lakes that are part of the program. It winds up as being a screening tool for lake protection and restoration. An example is if you've got a lake with hazardous blue-green algal problems, it's an example of a program that can flag that. it's helpful in doing enlisting in the same way. One of the things that you guys are about is enlisting and developing grassroots lake involvement. And this is a program that will help in that regard, and not only help with lake involvement, but also the business of potentially controlling resources. The best example that I have of that is Long Lake. As I started out working with the people at Long Lake, they had a very, very well-developed lake monitoring program. And in 2015, they happened to hit a blue-green algal bloom. Well, that blue-green algal bloom had 20,000 micrograms per liter of microcystis. It's the second highest recorded value for that algal toxin for Illinois lakes. With their data and with their identified problem, they went on to get resources from Illinois Institute of Technology, IIT. So they've got a doctor that's busy doing sediment work there now. They got additional monies and modeling support from USGS, and the level of their expertise is substantial. That is a very, very knowledgeable group of folks. What it started out though as that VLMP program was the entryway into that type of work. Lastly, it's helpful in terms of integrating with management planning. So it has great utility in terms of watershed and land use planning. So last one. Coordinator's Guide to Volunteer Lake Monitoring Methods. This is a very, very good reference document. Dr. Carlson was largely responsible for the initiation of getting lots of lake monitoring programs all across the country. And it describes the monitoring programs, the VLMP programs, in other states, including Wisconsin and Minnesota, Michigan. And so it's descriptive of their programs and the sorts of resources that are devoted to it. What we would like, and I've included for Mary prior to this, is simply a letter of endorsement from the lake lovers for purposes as we go in May to visit the legislature to lobby for this program. It will be important to have endorsement letters for it, and that's really number one, wanted you to have a very clear idea what this program involved. And number two, this is something that will be a resource for you. And what we would be hopeful of are in letters of endorsement from the lake lovers.
Yeah, and I thank you, Jim. Really appreciate the thoughtful presentation and your involvement over the years. And I would just like to clarify, Lake Lovers is us. It's everyone in Lake County who loves lakes or waterways. And Frank and I happen to host the platform, but I don't want it to be an us versus you are part of it. And you've contributed these valuable resources as the Fox River Waterways, the Friends of the Fox River, which we'll hear from next. Becky, did you have a question? It looked like you're holding your finger up. Nope. Okay. If anyone had any questions, what I thought, does anyone have questions for Jim? I guess.
Yeah, I do. So Jim.
Yeah.
Are you lobbying the state to refund the Illinois EPA program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we have existing support from, Lake County,
Health Department, right?
Lake County Health Department. We have support from Chicago Metropolitan, Agency for Planning. We have support from the Illinois Lakes Management Association. And we have a potential agreement from the Illinois Environmental Council to take on this effort to be able to get the program reinitiated.
So would it not no longer be through the IEPA?
On a personal level, I want it to be through IEPA. That makes the most sense, and in terms of keeping a database, there's an existing database that's already out there that still can be used and be accessed. The methods are important in terms of getting consistency. And as I've talked with Holly and with others, the idea of keeping it at IEPA is fairly important.
What are your thoughts, Gary, as far as where do you keep your data? You're more about teaching the kids how to do measurements rather than focusing on the accuracy of the measurements, I think. But maybe we go on to your activities. Jim, if you want to stop sharing, or I can take.
Mary, is it possible for me to ask a quick question?
Yes.
Jim, do you know why the funding stopped in 2019?
Yeah.
And why now, 5 years later, you're trying to reinvigorate it?
Good question. One of the reasons that it stopped is that the state had lost a tremendous number of employees, and they had an exodus of employees under the Trump administration and during that period of time, and under a number of different governors. Part of the program that identified lakes that would merit identification in the 305B report and 303D list were things that were a higher priority for them. And they had two problems. Number one, they have a mandate that they have to identify areas that meet or don't meet state standards. And the feeling was that this program didn't do enough to be able to validate those sorts of things. So that was the one of the reasons. As we talk with IEPA staff, we have support from them that they would like to see the program reinitiated. One of the things in terms of the letter that I wrote is I compared what their mandate is for water quality monitoring with what the program, that is the VLMP program, provided for them. And it's great irony that they got rid of it because it really generated really important information on a whole bunch of lakes. And was important for identifying, like I said, problem-related sorts of places. The existence of climate change and HABs, hazardous algal bloom, sorts of things. So all the more reason for trying to get people out to be able to understand what's happening with their lakes.
Jim, so isn't there a requirement by the IEPA to address 303 situations?
If you mean that, yes, and there are also, when you take a look at the number of lakes that are out there and the number of lakes that they can successfully monitor with technical staff, there's just no comparison. So, yeah, they have that mandate. I don't want to see that mandate go away. But one of the things that's actually problematic about the way in which we set up water quality standards and set up management of these things is by insisting that resources go to places that are wounded. What that does is that takes information away, our resources away from those places where there are still very, very good fish and critters that still need to be managed. One of the things that I did is I put together the first sanctuary for endangered and threatened fish species in Illinois. But when you take a look at where the endangered and threatened fish species are, they are in places that are not getting attention and are not getting money and focus.
Yeah.
So the business of having a volunteer army out there taking a look at these things means that you can start to identify where you get problems and also where important types of aquatic resources still exist.
Right, I get that philosophy of working on protection versus restoring something.
Yeah.
And that's where the reason why we're talking about this, because we said if we have 170, some people say 190 lakes and the rivers and streams, where we allocate money depends on, you know, the health of those lakes, the use of those lakes, and ideally data that would allow for an apples to apples comparison, or, you know, systematic exposure and decision making. And that is lacking if we don't have the data and if we don't have sufficient money to even cover the lakes right now. And on February 15th, the Lake County Health Department will talk about the health of our lakes and the plan for restoring lakes or managing lake issues. And right now the EPA shows 40 to 6, I think in Illinois, it's 60% of lakes show up on those 303 reports. So that was, I think it's the 303B. So Gary and Jim, great questions. Other questions? I thought we could share a little bit of what you're doing, Gary and Jenny. But did anyone, Stacy or Bill, Frank, did you have questions? Okay, great. Then I know this 3-minute video is really a very informative. It's 3 minutes. Would everyone like to see it? Or maybe Jenny, you could tell us, or Gary, you could tell us a little bit about your activities with the Citizen Science and Workshop, and then we could look at it. And you also have a cleanup day that you organize across the county in September, or across the Fox River watershed. And you said we could partner on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you could just tell us, as president of the Friends of the Fox River, your view on citizen science. And
All right, well, I'm the cheerleader. Jenny's the technician. Actually, I would recommend watching the video because that might answer a lot of questions for people. Is that all right?
yep, that's great. Okay.
What's going on here today? This is what it's all about. We're getting in the stream and we're gonna collect some data in various forms. We're looking for biological creatures which indicate water quality by who can survive in this habitat, and evaluating some water quality chemistry and checking a physical feature, which is the flow of the river.
Students been able to come out to Stony Creek and Otter Creek and other areas that they get to know the stream health. They see the stream as a living entity of our ecosystems around here.
How students can check the local stream is by collecting and measuring and assessing the water quality and habitat information.
Humans impact water quality by road and sidewalk storm drains and oil leaks like car leaks, and putting garbage like in the streams, and fertilizer.
We are responsible for protecting Stony Creek because hundreds of miles of streams aren't checked normally.
Biodiversity is a variety of life of many different living things, indicator of health of the ecosystem.
To collect BMIs, you need to rub rocks, undercut banks, dislodge them, and then capture them in nets.
I like being able to find the critters and the invertebrates in the creek, and I like that we can work as a team to find these critters and invertebrates, and I like that we can find the unusual qualities of the creek and see how well the critters have tolerance to pollution.
We collect BMIs because they have different tolerances to pollution, so they can indicate stream health.
BMIs, benthic means that they live at the bottom of a sea or a stream. Macro means that we can see them without a microscope, and invertebrates means that they don't have a backbone.
I identify them by using pictures and descriptions.
I identify the habitat by using bottom substrate, bake erosion, and shade and land use around the creek.
The temperature of the stream affects stream health because when there's colder water, that means there's higher levels of dissolved oxygen, which is really needed by some animals. And to keep the stream cold, there's a bunch of trees surrounding it, which blocks out the sun.
They conduct time trials. You measure out 10 feet, float that 10 feet. You take 3 time trials on average.
Chemicals we test for are nitrates, phosphates, pH, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, and temperature.
So the chemicals that react with our creek water in here cause this to happen, right? You see a color change, and there's also some solid material. I'll walk around so you guys can see it. And these tablets dissolve completely, so you can't see any solid material anymore. Then we have to start a 5-minute timer. That's going to change color based on how much oxygen is in here. So just be extra careful with this one. And oxygen is sensitive to temperature, so try to hold it by the cap when you're inverting, okay?
High dissolved oxygen levels are important because some of the BMIs require them, and if there isn't enough, or if they are high enough, then it will reduce biodiversity.
Too much of these compounds leads to too much algae growth, and algae changes the habitat and reduces the amount of oxygen in the water when it dies and is broken down by bacteria.
Hold it in the water, so it helps you wash it off. And it's gonna get caught in the net, right? Tiana, awesome job. Okay, let's set you guys up over here.
Beautiful.
All right, I haven't said this for a while, but I used to refer to our system as the farm league, and Riverwatch was the minor leagues. And when the state scientists go out, that's the pros. So, we're training in the techniques, but we're oftentimes like the first line of defense to notice problems. So it might not be a chemical thing, but if there's some disruption, we're there way more often than the minor leagues or the pros get in there. And building the stewardship ethic so that these children will be the ones that are sitting in our place right now. But it will hopefully be more of the common culture. It won't be, let's just call it specialists like us for that. So that's, I'm going to lose my power. Let me grab a cord.
I have to, confess, I kicked my power out of the computer and wasn't aware that it was actually out of juice. That's what happened. I looked down.
You thought you were having a brownout.
Yeah.
To give you an idea of the, Gary's kids used photographic stuff that I created for the aquatic macroinvertebrates of Illinois. Hopefully it's been useful, Gary.
Heck yeah.
To give you an idea of the difference, the Riverwatch folks that I had worked with have approximately about 35 different taxa that they identify. The state has got 1,400 that they use. When their biologists go out, the state does a much bigger deep dive into the character of what the vertebrate and invertebrate fauna are like in different stream regions. But in terms of being able to identify potential problems, identify where you've got good types of fauna, the sorts of things that are done by citizen scientists are drop dead important. And listen to those kids. They were great.
Weren't they?
Yeah.
So great job. Yes, Jenny and Gary, in engaging them. And thanks for saying that, Jim. And Jenny and Gary also said that they are open to go to any schools. They have their funds are for workshops, creating workshops for schools. So we want to promote their availability to do that in your area, right? I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Within our watershed, we try and stay in the boundary.
Yeah. Yeah, but I know Stacy Pine is going to have something special here coming up for Earth Day or Water Day. And she may, I don't know if Bill or Stacy have thoughts on what you've seen here, or Becky or Frank.
Well, I know that Island Lake was very involved in this program until it went down. And we weren't aware of that as a new group of lake managers came on. So we were kind of trying to reinvent the wheel, right? And what we found out, it was a little bit more complicated than just having 2 or 3 people using the Secchi dish and dissolved oxygen, that kind of thing. And again, we're a small group. So we had started the Adopt a Park program with the idea of hopefully, you know, looking at the lake as our biggest park and getting people involved and trained in this. So with our Earth Day Expo that's coming up, it's something we want to try to revitalize and then figure out how to provide the training to the people that are interested in and being involved.
Mm-hmm.
We have a huge creek project going on right now, and that's where I think a lot of our problems are coming from, because it's the only source of water into our man-made lake. And I really feel like we need to get down there and do constant, consistent monitoring of that channel to find out where the flaws are. You know, I mean, it's covered in algae pretty much all season now. We used to have open time, good time with it. And I mean, you can just see the sediment, and that's our other problem is the sediment. When that algae gets real bad, it's terrible. You go back there, you can see the turtles struggling. You can see the wildlife all struggling because they can't get through to the water. It's just a mess. And everybody wants to complain about the quality of the lake. And I feel like put your money where your mouth is. Let's give you a program where you can get involved. And this really was it, right? This really was it. So we need to bring it back at some level. And we're hoping at our Earth Day Expo, we'll be able to put it out there. And then by then have figured out a way to start at least some low level training.
Are you on Fox Lake, Stacy? Is that what?
No, Island Lake.
Oh,
Yeah, Stacy, have you talked with people at the stormwater management group?
Oh yeah, we
so-
actually we're doing a native buffer. We won a grant for that, and yes, we talked to stormwater. They're our lifesavers sometimes on this lake. And they're very aware about the problems that we
Have they ever talked about load assessments for your lake?
We have, yes, yeah, we have, but everything costs money, you know. So
But doing the analytic work to try and set up a load assessment doesn't have to cost a lot of money. In the case of Long Lake, we spent about $25,000.
that's not bad.
And did an evaluation, an annual evaluation of the load assessment coming from the watershed to the lake. That winds up, there's external loading and there's internal loading. But coming up with an estimate of the external loading winds up being important. I'd be happy to meet with you and talk with you a little bit about that.
Okay.
In terms of what you might want to do or have SMC do. for purposes of your, for purposes of your lake. Please remind me, you're on the Des Plaines drainage, correct?
No, we're
Are
Fox
you on
River.
Fox? Are you on Fox?
We're the last lake that goes right into Cotton Creek into the Fox River,
Okay,
which was why I
Okay.
was very interested when Friends of the Fox River started up, because we really are the tail of the dog.
well now, Gary, there is a there's a TMDL that was put together by the state. That's information that already exists
Hmm.
for your lake.
Hmm.
That's information that's important in terms of understanding your loading, and what sorts of things are driving the problems that you've got with your lake. Gary, your group should have copies of that. That is the Fox Lake TMDL.
I don't know about our archives with that, but I mean, it's accessible.
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Bottom
So-
line is they have, technical people have already done fairly detailed estimates of the loading for your lake.
Mhm.
And people but that's difficult for people to understand what it means.
It is.
So that's the biggest and toughest thing. If you pull together a couple of people, 2 or 3 people, some with some technical skill sets, then you'll get a much better idea of what it is that's driving what's problematic. And if you're down at the lowest part, right before you go into the larger lakes, then you are getting things from lots more folks than just.
Right. And we, we were part of the Nine Lakes watershed study, and I've read all of that. And we've got, of course, the health department's assessment of the lake. But again, it's asking the average citizen just to read that for understanding, it just doesn't work. It's too complicated. And like you said, we need to break it down into what can you do to help with this,
Your lake report generated from the health department should be helpful in that.
It is. And that's the other thing at the expo is we also, our lake management plan was done through Integrated Lake Management. And we were going to either ask Alana or Lisa to do a little mini seminar in layperson's terms to address
I hope
the
that
state of the
company,
lake.
I hope that company hustles and does a good job by you.
Jim founded that company. I don't know if you knew that.
I did know that. Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
It better damn well do a good job by you. I'll get after
So
that.
far, so good.
Yeah. Becky had a question. Yeah.
Just wanted to build on what I'm hearing. Stacy, you might be able to leverage this concept. If you think of a target as having a center, a middle ring, and an outer ring. In the center of your ring, you probably could name 5 or 10 people, yourself included, that are really passionate, that are dedicating a lot of time or a reasonable amount of time. You have high knowledge. Maybe you've got some people who are in that middle ring, right? That seem to care, but don't know what to do.
Right. And that's, yes. Yeah.
And then on the outer ring, the largest ring is maybe everybody else. So instead of worrying about everybody in a big clump, think of people in these rings, in these concentric rings. In the center, you probably have an idea. You're trying to find resources. You're trying to figure out what's our strategic plan. What does good look like? How do we get there? And maybe how do I engage the next 2 rings? So I would encourage you to write down 3 things that you want each of those rings to know and to do. Just 3 things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can
Keep
get
it
overwhelmed. We
small.
want to do 50 things or 100
Yeah.
things or 20 things. And,
Right.
just write down 3 things and work with those people in the center to have conversations and to get alignment. Maybe it's 4 things. Don't go more than 5.
Yeah.
And then
no.
as you're engaging in these kinds of conversations, maybe with other experts in global waterworks, you can look for examples of how did we teach or influence behavior change to just accomplish those three things. And
Mhm.
maybe just set that as a goal for this year, right? Maybe just pick one of those and set it as a goal for this year. So just to help you eat the elephant, one bite at a time.
Well, and that's with our lake management plan that Integrated Lakes Management did. We hit all of our goals for the first year. So
Congratulations.
it was
How are you doing
pretty,
this year?
well, we're trying to define where we want, and we know, getting the sediment out is a huge thing, but that's not even going to begin to happen without money. So again, this is why we need to bring the interest in. And I think that's our biggest goal is how do we get the public involved? The only time they want anything to do with the lake is to complain, right? So what we need to have that counter ready to go. Well, don't complain. Over on your side of the lake or over by the channel, you do your Secchi dish, you do the O2. You need to alert us when you see your first algae bloom. So we're kind of seeing that as our very first need, right?
Do you know whether or not you have hazardous algal blooms?
Oh, yeah.
And can I, because this is,
Yeah.
How do you,
for a really long time here, Tim.
please for a second. How do you know that?
Because, well, at the end of the season, we had the EPA, we had the health department, we had SWALCO all out because of this horrible smell. And we kept saying it's a bloom. And they came out and verified, and we were part of the algal bloom reporting. And we actually got people on the lake. And that's another way to do it, is to advertise that more. And Alana and the health departments actually came out and did our tests. We bought the test strips, but we're not very good with them yet, right?
All of those things are good. It is important to know too whether or not it's just microcystin that you're dealing with, or whether you're dealing with other types of algal problems.
Right. And Alana has been so good. Everybody hates our lake that has to deal with it and has, they have to be responsible for shutting it down, and you don't want to overreact and you don't want to underreact. And the Lake County Health Department, I've got a hotline to Alana. All I have to do is pick up the phone and she'll send somebody out. And like I said, this last one, she actually got the EPA involved. That's because it was more than just a regular bloom. Yeah.
Well, the load allocations are a large part of what you're dealing with, and the DO profile of the lake is also pretty critical.
Mhm.
You have an understanding of what's happening down in the bottom in terms of internal loading
Yeah.
of your lake.
So,
And I'll take a closer look at those because I've got all that information.
I will be happy to come by if you get a small group of folks, and if you could pull together some of the technical information. And I am semi-retired.
Yes, me too.
I do volunteer work, and
and
occasionally I do billable work as well.
Okay. Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
So you two are going to connect offline.
Yes. Mhm.
Next week, there is a briefing by the, I guess before I switch over here, I just want to honor everyone's time and say thank you. Jim, what you prepared on the VLMA,
Yeah.
we will submit a letter and support the effort as lake lovers, I think.
Yeah, people can, in terms of a letter of endorsement, if you can send that to me. Right now, it's my letter that is moving the action on the part of different people.
And then
I'm scheduled to go and visit. I'm looking to get a visit with Deborah Shore with US EPA.
Yeah.
And look to try and get better coordination between what the state has to do with those 305D and 305B sorts of things, and what US EPA wants. And aside, unfortunately, I go back a long ways, and I used to do the 305B reports for,
Okay.
Wow.
so.
Okay.
So do we have your email?
Yes.
It's very, my personal email is very easy. It's ilmbland@comcast.net.
That is very easy.
So, so good. And then, the two other things. So next, the 8th, we have an event. I guess, just to sum up again, we'll do the letter and then we're going to, Becky's offered to do a workshop, which we're talking about hosting on March 9th for people who have specific initiatives on that. And we'll be in touch to just interview. It sounded like there were specific, definitely projects you have ongoing,
And
Stacy, and I think also with Gary and Jenny having the initiatives for citizen science, we want to stay involved with that. I wanted to point out the calendar on
Yeah.
February. This Empower Illinois is helping to reduce phosphates. They actually had a lot of success with the phosphorus load due to working with the point source providers at the Stickney plant.
Oh,
And the ILMA conference is March 4th, and the our next Alana is going to be speaking about all of these reports. And Gary and Jenny, you may want to join that. She's going to walk through the whole lake management planning process and tools that they have available. And then we want to make sure we participate in your Fox River Day.
Yes.
Yay.
So there,
Yay.
we're going to ask lakes to begin to sign up or think about activities. And we know you have the resource on the website. Anything else we should be looking at or aware
No,
of?
we're setting up in the planning stage
Okay.
right now, but if you save the date and you can, it's a celebration, so people are free to do whatever is going to work for them. So it's just showing your love for the watershed. We have a lot of cleanups are common, but we also have things like Tai Chi by the river.
Oh, what fun. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, because I became aware of the Friends of Fox River Waterway last year. So what we did on our events calendar this year is on that day, I have to make sure I've got the right date. We're going to, with our Adopt a Park program, we're going to do a cleanup right there at our spillway where it comes out of the lake and empties into the creek, because nobody ever looks over there. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody pays any attention to that spillway. And I think that's a good way to call attention to the connectedness of us all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we're going to be part of that.
All
That's-
right. You might be our first lake event.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Okay.
wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah.
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 Yeah, well, we heard the Boy Scouts who were supposed to be on today. They want to do any cleanups or be focused on specific physical labor. So keep them in mind, Jenny and also Stacy. Yeah.
Yeah, we work with two of the local scout groups, and we've already given them these dates. So fingers
Great.
crossed.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Well, then I don't have anything more. I just want to say thank you so much. We are going to the Green Alliance next week, and we'll promote what you all are doing and get information on the green schools.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
hopefully we
yeah,
can
great. Yeah.
engage them further. Does anyone else have any further comments, questions?
I guess there's a group of us going down to the Illinois Lake Management Conference again in Champaign. So I don't know if any of you are going to be down there, but again, last year it was my first time, and it's just such a valuable resource,
Totally.
especially for amateurs, right?
Great presentations. Yes.
Yeah.
So could we just go around and maybe do a gut check with everyone? I love Gloria Chatham does this, and it's a nice way to think. What did you learn? Maybe just a thought. I'll just say I'm maybe overwhelmed is knowing how much data we need and how many programs there are, but excited about the resources available, expertise. Stacy, your gut check.
My gut check is that for the last 2 years, we have felt so alone, even with all of the documents and knowing, but not other than Alana, that was like, who do we talk to? And this has been so good for me, having those connections that we can reach out to you. I just feel better that there's other people out there that care.
Support group, we're here for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim,
I want to make sure that Gary gives me a call so I can get a copy of Aquatic Macroinvertebrates of Illinois into his hands. And his program sounds wonderful. I'm really glad. I love seeing the kids. They look
Awesome.
great, and we're supportive of the types of things that Gary is doing.
yeah. And shoot, I guess I missed Jenny. She had to go. Frank, I don't know if you're still on. I knew he had to tend to something personal level. Maybe he'll unmute. And Bill,
I'm just absorbing everything that's been said tonight. And I really like the clarity of volunteer program. I'm a big proponent for moving forward with that within our group. It is a complicated issue, and I kind of look forward to being part of that.
yeah. Well, your comprehensive planning approach will come in handy there. And Gary,
You know, we work to be watershed wide, but it's a big watershed, and we really have not paid attention to lakes really at all. Like we when the war was going on with Long Lake and so much progress there, Paige Fitton was pretty involved with Friends of Fox River, so we profiled that. But you know, it gets off our radar. Where you know we get like tunnel vision on some things, so that was really good awakening for me.
yeah, well, thank you. And I think we're all integrated. So Bill, I shared before you joined that our view is that we need to pay attention to rivers and streams as much as lakes. And Becky,
The kids in the video, I was so impressed. And if we can teach those things to kids, we can teach them to a committed, interested volunteers. And I'll also say, when you're trying to pitch your idea, pitch your program, pitch to get funding, frame the value of what you're offering in the language of your listener. So if it's a quality person, how does your idea improve quality? If it's supposed to save money, how does it save money if you're talking to a financial person? How does it improve safety if you're talking to a health person? So just be ready with those stories in the language that your audience will be most able to catch the vision and say yes. So good luck. This was really fun tonight.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you all. It was fun, and the positive attitude and the contributions you each make really add up to, I think, a cohesive whole, which allows for us to make progress. Maybe gradual, but the beautiful thing is nature isn't rushing anything, and still everything gets done. I love that quote. So Gary can go out and do his cross-country skiing if the snow comes back, or Jim can look out on the lake.
I was paddling today.
Oh, it was a great springy day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Amazing. Yes. Well, I'll just say big thank you. We will record or put this into the community so people have access, and all the links to the wonderful books and resources that you guys have provided. So
Yeah.
So thank you. And one last thing we did last year at ILMA, put in a lake scorecard, a simple idea with a dissolved oxygen probe and a bathymetric scan to do apples to apples comparison of lakes. We'll have a case study on that by March of this year that will
Okay.
allow people to see how that data helps us
Yeah.
help
Good.
the lake. So thank you all. And
you.
we will see you maybe next week, or definitely with Alana, we hope on February 15th. Comes back.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you,
Yeah.
folks.
Thank you guys.
Good
Have a
night,
day.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.